And we welcome in Brooks Orpik to NHL Live. It's Deb Placey and EJ Raddick at the Storm Manhattan. How are you today?
I'm doing great. How you guys doing?
Good.
We're good. Now, we try to ask players when we can. We get tweets for you guys, and right off the bat, we have Casey wanting to know how you got your nickname Free Candy.
Oh, geez. Yeah. It kind of took off a couple years ago in the playoffs. It was that one shift that's kind of pretty well known in Pittsburgh, Detroit, where I had a couple hits. And then I'm not exactly sure who's responsible for starting it, but it's something that's, like I said, kind of took off, and my teammates have fun with it at my expense. It's just something fun that's kind of stuck around me for whatever reason.
Well, I still like your real name, Brooks, because that's the same name as my son. So I'm happy to welcome in another Brooks to the show. So I'm glad you're here. And I want to ask you about the other day. You guys played. You had that wild game with the Caps, and you had the long bus ride, the whole thing. You had a lead. They tie it up. You get into overtime. And then there was that, dicey penalty there with you and Semin, and you weren't too happy with Semin there. I mean, now you've had a couple of days to step back. I mean, you still feel the same way about that call?
Probably just a little bit of frustration after the game. We were up 4-1 there, and kind of gave away 2 points. But yeah, no, that's just something. Probably said something I probably shouldn't have, but
hey, listen, you're allowed to feel that way. You guys are competing hard out there.
Yeah, it's it's something that the two of us, even going back to the playoffs last year, it's just for some reason I always get matched up against them. We've had a couple of battles here and there, but I don't know. Like, seeing the replay was probably a penalty, and it was. I think I was probably just more frustrated with how the whole game went, with a lot of the calls that were let go during the game, and kind of seemed like the players were going to settle the score, and then it's tough to ever take a penalty in overtime and lose that way. But it was probably a penalty in most situations. But like I said, looking at the whole game and the way it was called, it was probably something that you thought would have gone uncalled.
That is one of the things I think, talking to you guys, to the players over the years, and this goes back, to different generations of players, is that's the one thing that is a kind of a common thing, is that the players, you guys always feel like it's always in the context of a game, how things are being called, and that's when you get that's when really things bother you a little bit, is when you feel something is out of context with how things have been called throughout the game.
Yeah, as a player, I think certain referees call it a little bit differently, and you try to get used to that and try to play around that. But at the same time, I think all the players know that the referees have a pretty tough job.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff happens so quickly out there, and there's only two of them that can make the calls. it's impossible for them to be perfect, and obviously us as players aren't perfect. So I think initially a lot of times you get frustrated with them, and I think after everything settles, you kind of take a step back and realize that those guys make mistakes just like we do. But going back to that, it's just I think consistency is really the only thing that players ask for from the referees.
We're talking to Brooks Orpik, California-born, who will represent the United States in Vancouver. I'm sure you're heading out on Sunday night like a lot of guys are. How do you feel about being one of the veterans on this team? A lot of young guys on Team USA as we see a changing of the guard.
Yeah, it was interesting this summer in Chicago at the orientation camp. I did feel like one of the older guys at 29 years old, but probably nothing new for me. Coming from Pittsburgh here, I feel old on this team with all the young guys we have here, so it shouldn't be too big an adjustment for me. But compared to a lot of the other teams, it definitely is going to be one of the younger teams.
It's got to be. I would think this would have to be something. It's something that's special under any circumstances. But in your case, it's a little bit interesting because I know that your dad, gave you that name Brooks with the idea of Herb Brooks in mind in one way, just like I kind of did with my son. And so now you're going to this Olympics. You're representing, the U.S. and obviously everybody knows about what Herb Brooks' legacy was with that. Is it a little bit of a, maybe almost a little bit more of something special to you because of that kind of the history you have with your dad making that connection for you at such, as a child?
Yeah, it's kind of weird how everything worked out. Growing up in California for about 7 years, that was before San Jose had the Sharks there. There was really no hockey up in Northern California at all. Like, I didn't know what hockey was till I moved to Buffalo. And then it kind of came full circle. I got drafted by Pittsburgh in 2000, Calgary. And then I remember coming down to the draft room floor to the Pittsburgh table, and then Herb Brooks was working for the team still. So it was really weird how it worked out. And then I remember
how was that meeting like?
Well, he was well aware of the whole story, so it wasn't that weird, to be honest. But it was actually a couple years later after I signed my first year. I was down in Wilkes-Barre, and Herb used to come down. And then myself and Colby Armstrong actually got to know him really well. He used to come down, and there's not much to do in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. So we had a lot of downtime, went out to dinner with him, and he gave you all the time you needed to pick his brain. He was definitely a really interesting guy, and he was always there to help you out in any way you needed.
When you did pick his brain, what are some of the things you learned from him?
It was, I don't know, naturally the first thing we asked him about was the Olympics in 1980, stuff like that. And he really didn't take any of the credit for it at all. It was all the players. And, I mean, I think that just kind of spoke to what kind of guy he was. He's a really selfless guy. And like I said, he was always there to help you out in any way you needed. But he was really big on just the mental approach to the game. I think that was where he, with myself and Colby Armstrong, really helped us out. And obviously, I mean, he'd give you pointers here and there, but a lot of it was just the mental approach and just how big like confidence played a factor in people's performance in their game.
All right, well, we wish you well with Team USA in Vancouver. We'll give a shout-out to Boston College, your alma mater. I think they won the Bean Pot a couple nights ago, didn't they?
Yeah, they squeaked it out. Yeah, they almost blew it. But
All right, well, thanks for jumping on with us today. Have a good weekend to finish up with the Penguins there, and we'll look forward to seeing you in Vancouver.
All right, thanks a lot, guys.
That's Brooks Orpik, born in San Francisco.
There you go.
Name for Herb Brooks. We want to mention Ken Moore.